All right, everyone, let's get started. So let's talk about how to protest your property taxes in Williamson County, Texas. So thanks for joining me today. You know, there's few things in real estate that cause more people getting upset than the difference between what you think your house is worth versus what the county tax assessor thinks your house is worth. So let's talk about what you can do if you feel like your home is assessed for too high of a price compared to what you think the value really should be. Okay, and so first off, who am I? Joyce and I own Kopa Real Estate. We're a local real estate company here in Austin. We are not a professional tax protesting company. And this presentation is for informational purposes only. We do often recommend that people just reach out to one of the companies that does do tax protesting for a living. You might find that that's easier or less stressful for you. But if you want to understand how the system really works and get a better idea of how your protest would work, I'm going to run through the process, and I'm going to actually go through doing an online protest of my own house right here live. Okay, so I always just want to make that clear. I've learned some of these tips through the years of just protesting the taxes on my own house, and we own a few other rental properties, so I've kind of, as a matter of necessity, learned how to do this on my own. So happy to share with you this information, okay? So let's get started. Okay, so, and let me even start with how we are here, right? So it would be impossible for the tax office to send out an appraiser to value our homes individually. So what happens is they're essentially using an algorithm to come up with values for the neighborhoods and our properties that way. And because of that, because they're not really coming up with a value specifically for our homes, we are allowed to protest those values, okay? And so what you can protest is the market value of your house. So this can either be based on sales information, so you believe that it's an incorrect appraised value, or your value is unequal compared with other properties. And so a lot of people don't understand that they can protest in this second way. What that means is that my neighbor across the street has the exact same floor plan home as mine, okay, very similar. Let's say my home is assessed at $400,000, or value is at $400,000. It's not fair to me if the value of my neighbor's home across the street is valued at $350,000. So that's the second way that you can protest, and I'll get to talking about that a little bit later because it is an important aspect of the process that you should know about, okay? What you can't protest. So you cannot protest the amount of taxes that you paid, even though on the assessment value that you receive in the mail, it'll give you an estimate of what your property taxes are going to be. The actual tax rates aren't set until later in the year, usually September. And then the tax bills get sent out to us in October. At that point, it's too late. So we're not allowed to protest those. It's important when you go in for any hearing that you don't say you're really protesting the amount of taxes you pay. What we're protesting is that value. Okay, so it's a little bit, make sure you understand that when you do your protest. And so how are we here, right? So this is the letter that I received for one of my properties here in Avery Ranch. You can see the address. I don't mind sharing this information because it's all public information, really. You can look up, you know, this right on the county website. So you can see down here where they've got my market value of my home, okay? And second page that I received, this is the estimated taxes that they're saying I'm likely to be paying. But remember, I can't go in and say, hey, I should really only be paying $10,000 in taxes. This doesn't make that much of a difference really to me at this point. And then this gives you an idea here on the left side. This is all paperwork that you would have received, all the different other ways that you can protest your taxes, but a lot of these things are not applicable to what we're going to be talking about today. It's more specific for perhaps one individual property, but not really beneficial for us to talk about all of these type of things, okay? So now, first off, what if you recently purchased your home? So let's say you bought your home last year. then you may be eligible for what's called an express review, okay? And so a lot of people say, well, I just bought my home last September and it was $400,000 and now you're telling me my house is valued at $450,000. That's not right. So the tax office does have a system for people in your situation. All you do is very simple. You just send an email to expressinquiry@wcad.org, Williamson County Appraisal District. Include the closing statement from when you bought your home, and then write in the email, say, I purchased your address on blank date, and I'm attaching my closing statement for the express review. In a couple of days, they'll send you back an email saying that whether they've accepted that lower value or not. Now, keep in mind that the tax office will add on what's called a time adjustment to your price. So, for example, if you bought a home last April for $300,000 and the tax office says, well, we've had 5% appreciation since last April, okay? They're going to they may not assess your home for that $300,000 value. They are probably going to add a prorated amount based on that percentage increase in value that they found for the neighborhood, okay? I don't know what it is for your specific neighborhood. We have people joining here from all over the area, but don't be surprised at that your value won't come back to be exactly what you paid for your house, okay? So next thing, quick tips, okay? So don't be in a hurry to protest. There's no benefit of you being the first person in line to protest your property taxes. In fact, it really puts you at a disadvantage for a variety of reasons. One of them is you're just kind of fresh meat. So the appraisers are all fired up at the beginning of the process. They've been told that they've got to keep values up. And so they're going to have more energy in fighting you back than they're going to be later on in the year. The deadline to protest is May 15th, okay? But that is a little bit of a misunderstanding. So especially what I'm going to walk you through is how to protest your taxes online. All you really need to do is do that online protest before May 15th, and then you can schedule the actual time that you'll go for your hearing after that. So for example, I just tried one of my properties a couple days ago. They didn't agree to my value. They sent me back the calendar to schedule for later in the year. And I picked a date towards the end of June, okay? Now, if they open up dates a little bit later, like say July, I'll probably go ahead and reschedule to go as late as possible, and I'll explain why that later, okay? So you don't have to be in a rush to actually go to the appraisal district office and do your real hearing. You just want to get in that protest before that May 15th date, okay? Hope that makes sense. And one of the biggest tips is that the appraisal district will provide you with all of their evidence that they have to come up with the value of your house in advance if you ask for it, okay? So you just have to know to ask for that information. And not having that just doesn't make a lot of sense to go to your hearing without knowing the properties that the tax office is using to come up with your value, so, okay? First step, first step is just my recommendation is doing an online protest. On that paperwork that they will send you in the mail, there'll be a water stamp that says that your property is eligible for an online protest, or you can log into the WCAD website and you can see on your property if you're eligible for that. So I'll walk you through that process. So first step, online protest. You'll have the option to accept or reject their revised offer if they would give you one. And if you reject the offer, then you'll want to schedule your hearing appointment, okay? So let me go ahead, and I'm going to get out of this presentation here, and I'm going to go directly to the appraisal district website, okay? So at the top of the appraisal district website, you can click on property search, okay? And then you just type in your address. So I've already done that for my property right here, okay? Now over here to the right, it says protest online, okay? So I'm just gonna click on that button real quick. And so purchase your home between here. So this is what's talking about the express review. I didn't do that. I purchased it a couple years ago. So I'm going to have to proceed now to the online appeal. Okay, if you don't have an account, if this is your first time going through this, you'll have to create a user account. Because I've done this for many, many years, I've got an account here set up, so I'm going to log into my account. Okay, perfect. So let me find the property here that I want to protest. All right, so I'm going to protest this 9817 Rios Way house. Okay, make sure this is all my information. And then right here, click here to file a protest. Okay, all right, so I'm going to look at all the information here now. My contact information, my all of this is correct, right? Address is right here. Address. Okay, so give street address, that's the correct address. Legal description right here. Okay, now this is very important. There are, like we talked about, there's two ways of looking at how you are going to protest your property taxes. And this step number 3 goes through this. Value is over market value, okay? That would be based on sales comparable properties, okay? The second is value is unequal compared to other properties. That was the example that I gave you talking about my neighbor's house across the street, okay? Or the third option is value is over market and unequal. So that gives you the ability to protest based on either one of those reasons. Now, again, this is very important. If you only pick one of these, you can't later change your mind when you go into a hearing and say, oh, I know I only clicked off value is over market value, but today I want to protest really on value is unequal compared to other properties. If you do that, you've lost your right to protest for that. So we always recommend that you click value is over market and unequal just to maintain your right to protest either way, okay? So next option is opinion of value. What do you think your property's value is? Now, you can't put nothing in here, otherwise the system won't allow you to do it. I've tried. If you put 0 in here, they won't send you back any kind of compromise. They'll just send you an email that says you'll have to schedule a hearing. So you might want to just put in what you reasonably think that your house is worth, or perhaps a little bit lower than what you think, just to negotiate a little bit. So I'm going to put in here, let's go with $460,000. All right, and then I'm going to put in my name. All right, click review protest. Please review the form. Okay, it's all correct. And let's see what happened. Sure you, all right. Just got to wait a minute for their software to go through. Okay, protest successfully submitted. So, all right. Now, from here, I can go into the property, right? And I can see online on the back end here, protest history, right? Protest pending. So it probably will take them a day or so before they get back to me with any kind of settlement, if there is anything that they're going to do. Okay. All right. So let's get back into, let me get back to that slide real quick. Okay. So here's what happened on a different property that I protested a little while ago, or this was actually last year. It says your appraisal review is available for the property. Response is required within 5 days. That's very important. Please click on the link down here. When you click on that link, it's going to take you back to that the WCAD website again, where I can click on whether they have are going to give me any kind of a lower value or not. Okay, so that's where you would find out. Now, the reason why the 5 days is important is, let's say in this situation I put in 460. Let's say they come back and say they're not going to accept 460, but they'll give me a value of 470. Okay, I have at that point 5 days in order to accept that 470 value. If I don't respond within that 5 days, then they assume I don't want to accept that value, and I've lost my right to take that. So it's really important to be watching your email. And if you don't get something within that a couple of days, you might want to call the appraisal district office and see what's going on, right? Just give them your address. Now, this is what will happen. Come back. Again, this was one from last year. So they did send me within that system. I pulled it up, and they sent me a settlement offer for $418,000, right? And so this was based on the equity comparable report. So that one was based on the fairness, right? And I'll talk about why I did that a little bit later. I have the choice to either accept or decline and schedule my account for a hearing. Okay. Last year, I thought that that was still a little bit high, so I rejected it and scheduled a hearing. Okay. So again, here, this will go into my back-end system, right? Appraisal review available, appraisal review rejected. Okay. All right. So I talked earlier about the tax office sending me, the appraisal district sending me what's called an evidence packet. So this is all the information that they would be using in my hearing if I was going to go for a hearing at the appraisal district, okay? So if you do this online protest and get a response, usually within that back end of the website, you will get this evidence packet, okay? However, sometimes it doesn't come through that way. So for example, one property I did earlier a couple weeks ago, they didn't send me anything back. So I sent an email to this email address right here, pir@wcad.org, and just had the subject information for my hearing with my address. And then the simple email, please provide me with all the information that will be used in my hearing, in parentheses, evidence packet. They'll know what you mean. Probably about 2 days from the time you send in this email, depending on how busy they are, they will send you back the evidence packet, okay? So awfully nice for them to have that. Now, this is what an evidence packet would look like, all right? So this is for one of my houses. Now this house, this first slide here, this is what's called your appraisal card. And your first step really would be to wanting to review all of this information that the tax office has about your property, okay? We see many, many homes that are measured at a larger square footage than what they really are. So remember, the tax office is not sending out an individual appraiser to measure your house, or likely has never done it, send out an individual appraiser to measure your particular house. Usually they're going off of, say, the builder floor plan or builder blueprints, or that's probably how they're getting it. So sometimes there's a discrepancy there. Maybe your house wasn't built with that media room. Who knows what it could be, right? But you want to make sure, because that extra square footage could be adding value to your property. So now everybody has to decide if they want to do that or not. Some people say, well, I don't want the tax office to have a lower square footage because I want to sell my house and I want people to think it's higher. I'll leave that up to you to make that decision, right? But you still want to go through here. This house has 3 bedrooms. What if it said my house had 5 bedrooms? Well, that would certainly be a mistake. So that would give me the right to protest based on that. Okay, so that's the first step of this. The second step is that they will, again, send you back the comparable properties that are used. So here you can see they sent back 3 comparable sales for my house, okay? Now, let me explain why this is an advantage. The tax office cannot add additional evidence to your hearing. This is all they can use if I'm protesting based on this sales value, all right? And so looking at this, if there were 3 houses here that they're comparing it to, several times when I've protested, because this is all just an algorithm and it's just data being put together and technology, right? That it's not always going to be accurate. So many times I've had a property that wasn't included in the neighborhood where my house is, or perhaps it was a home that was much larger, much smaller, maybe it has a pool, some other types of value that they're coming up with. And I need to know that information when I go in to meet with the appraiser, right? Because I don't want to just be providing comps. The appraiser may already have any of those comps also. A big part of the battle is removing one of the comparable properties if it's not really a comparable property, right? So you imagine if I had 3 homes here and one of the homes was really skewing the value to be much higher, if I could get that property removed, that would significantly lower the value that the tax office was coming up with my house, okay? So from there, I would want to take a look at these 3 comps and say, okay, are there other comparable properties that were not included that would help me establish a lower value? And so myself as a real estate broker, when people are coming to me and they're saying, oh, can you provide us with comps for my house? Well, I might be providing you with the same comps that the tax office is already using. Where I could really benefit one of my friends or past clients is looking at this evidence packet and seeing what the comps are that the tax office is already using, helping you make an argument for why that's maybe not a good comparable property, maybe it's apples to oranges, and then helping you fill in the missing information with perhaps a couple of comps that would really help your case and especially not hurt it, okay? So I hope you can see now why it's really important to get that evidence packet up front. This will go through all of the information here too, and some of this has, say, upgrades that they're including or they're making adjustments based on the size of the house, the age of the house. They don't make tremendous adjustments based on the condition. They're sort of assuming everything is going to be the same. But if your home is in much poorer condition, say, than some of these other comps, or there's something missing there, then you certainly would want to take pictures of the difference in your property, right, and bring that to your hearing, okay? And without having these comps in advance, you can't do that. So by getting them also in advance, is by the time you go for your hearing and you're meeting with the appraiser, it's too late for you to pull up this information. There's not enough time for you to, call me. There's no phone a friend when you go to protest your property tax value. And so you're kind of left on your own. So if you found out about this at the last minute, really too late. So, okay. So now, because I was protesting based on both of those reasons we talked about, I also got additional comparable properties, right? And you see this is based on uniform and equal comparable report. So this, again, this is just saying that other similar homes in my neighborhood, what they're taxed at, and that's how they're coming up with the value for me, okay? Let me explain why this is important, and this is really important for you if you wanted to schedule your appointment later on in the cycle instead of going first, all right? So here's what I did last year. To tell you the truth, I made a mistake. I always tell people that you should protest based on both of the reasons. For some reason on this particular property or on one particular property, I only clicked off on the unequal protest, right? So I couldn't go off of any sales comps. What I did do though is I scheduled my protest at the end of the session, and I took all of these comparable properties right here. What I did is the morning before I was going to meet with my appraiser is I just pulled up all of these values again for a second time, and I could see that out of the 10 comparable properties that they were giving me, that 8 of those properties had already gone to protest their tax value and had their tax values reduced. So here's what I did. When I went to meet with my appraiser, I just hand wrote on here all the differences. I had the appraiser at my hearing just go through and update the software for my property, and it came out with a significantly lower tax value without having to provide any comparable properties or anything like that. So it certainly takes you a little bit of work to do this, but really in the end, it might provide you with a better and easier process. So now how do you get the updated values? So remember, it's all public information. So I just would type in each of these addresses into the top of the wcad.org website, and it'll pull up the different value that they had later on. It didn't match up with what I got originally with my evidence packet. So, okay, simple enough. I hope that makes sense. All right, so here's what you're doing. Now here's what you're doing if you're preparing for your hearing. So if you're not going to accept the value, or they didn't offer you any kind of a compromise value, then you're going to go for a hearing. All right. And so the first step is you want to, again, look at your evidence packet, look at the comparable properties, request that they move the non-comparable comps, make adjustments for missing features, add additional comps, bring any photos and any other information you want to present. All right. Now, let me also talk about, I often get calls during this process from somebody that has a property that is perhaps unique or has a defect to it, or perhaps your property backs up to a highway or backs up to a really busy road. And we know that that house is not going to be valued as high as, say, somebody's house that's on an interior cul-de-sac, all right? You can go for your hearing and you can make that argument. You might get a little bit of a value reduction for that if you take some pictures and all that. The truth is that it's very hard to make that argument without providing a lot of backup data. If you have a situation like that, you really might be better off hiring one of those professional companies to come out and protest for you, okay? Bring any photos and any other information that you want to present. Okay, now if you're going off with a value is unequal, again, you want to schedule as late in the year as you can, and then you want to pull up comparables that were used, the comps that was used, and see how those values have changed between the time you got your evidence packet and the time that you're going in for your hearing, okay? Now the first step is that when you go to the tax office, you're going to have what's called an informal hearing. You're going to meet one-on-one with an appraiser. It's going to take maybe 10 or 15 minutes. You present your evidence, any of the comps, photos, anything that you have. The appraiser may reduce your value, and you again have the option to accept or reject. Now, if you reject, the next step is to go for a formal hearing. Now, again, this is important. If you reject the value that you get from the appraiser at that informal meeting, you don't get to carry that forward into your formal hearing. You've lost it. So if they do give you a value, even if it's, let's say, $4,000 or $5,000 less than what you really would want to have in a perfect world, you might want to consider still accepting that, because if you go forward into this formal hearing, you might lose altogether and then can't go back to that value you got from the appraiser, okay? All right, so when you go in and meet the appraiser, it's a little bit important to say what or what not to say is important. You want to come off as nice, pleasant, as professional as you can. You really want to come off as somebody who understands the system. And the more you do understand the system, perhaps from watching this, the easier the process will be for you. And I believe the appraisers are more willing to give you the benefit of the doubt if you do come in with that understanding. So things not to say, don't talk about price per square foot. So if you come in and you say the average price per square foot in the neighborhood's $150 and my home is $160 a square foot on the appraisal district, it doesn't matter. If you bring in a CMA and you say, well, my realtor said that my house is valued at $300,000 and you have it at $325,000, they're not going to consider that. The only thing they would consider are the particular properties as the comps that they might be able to include in with their value, okay? If you say you've got cracks in the driveway, fence isn't painted, stained, your yard slopes, so those are things that are very difficult to make an argument for. And the truth is that some of the properties sort of get the short end of the stick when it comes to this, unfortunately. You say you overpaid, and they're probably not going to accept that. Your taxes are too high. We talked about that. That doesn't matter. People will come in and say they're a real estate agent. They don't care that I'm a real estate agent, other than perhaps they know that I have more data than, say, the average person does when I go in. And don't say average anything. They really don't care about average anything. They're valuing your property and comparing it to other homes that have sold or other comparables on those unequal protests. All right, so the formal hearing. If you can't come to a resolution in that informal hearing, you go to the formal hearing before the appraisal review board. All right, and the appraisal review board consists of 3 members of the community. So you'll be meeting with those 3 members plus an appraiser. If you get to that point, and it's going to be the same day, so if you think that's going to happen, you need to bring 4 copies of all of your evidence. So if you have pictures or comps or a packet of information, bring 4 of them so that everybody can get a copy, right? And so you'll make your argument, the appraiser will make his or her argument, and then the appraisal review board will make their decision. So what happens next if you lose in that case? Well, the next step is arbitration. That does take you coming up with some money in order to go to arbitration, and then whoever wins or loses will have to kind of wins or loses that money as well. So that's going to be outside of the scope of this presentation, especially because you've got to come up with that money. That's something you'd have to do a little bit more research on your own, although it's an interesting aspect of this. So, all right. Well, I hope you have learned something from this presentation, and perhaps it's given you a better idea of really how the property tax value appraisal protest system works. And really, it's important to understand how it works and not just kind of, well, what worked from a friend. You know, we hear a lot of stories from friends that went and protested on the first day and they came back and they got $15,000 off. But as you can see, there's really a system that comes into play here. And you'll have much better luck if you stick to the system and really work your way through there. Plus, be kind of nice to the appraisers as you go through the system as well. I think, again, they'll give you a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt than you might get from somebody else. So, okay. All right. Well, let me see if have any questions. Be happy to stay on here. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but everybody that's watching this is going to get a copy of the presentation. And so you're certainly welcome to reach out to me if you have questions about the process, maybe something I didn't explain. Like I said, if you have a very unique property or something that's going to take someone days to research, that you might want to consider reaching out to one of those protesting companies. Okay, Mina, I see you have a question. Go ahead. Oh, okay, good question. How do you come up with a reasonable price for your property, right? Well, this question's coming from a friend of mine. You could reach out to me. A lot of people just sort of have an idea of what their property would sell for. Now, I will tell you this, in a lot of our areas, and many of the people that I've tried to help so far, their tax appraised value is significantly lower than what your home would sell for. Okay, so I can't say that for everybody, but I know for my personal properties, I could sell my homes for much higher than what the tax appraised value is. So maybe that's something to send me a question about, and I could try to help you a little bit better with it and come up with that. But it is certainly a tricky thing. I suppose if you aren't sure, particularly with that online protest, you could put in a lower amount and certainly see what comes back that way, right? That answer your question? I hope so.